All right, I assume everything's working. I know it's Wednesday night. I know it's 8 o'clock. I know it's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And I believe that everything is operational here on the live stream. I hope that it is. You guys start filtering in and get ready for this week's live Panther-Lair show. The dogs are wrestling over there, so they're going to make a lot of racket in the background. I apologize if you hear it, but it's nice ambient noise. You're doing something worse than wrestling. Hey, stop it. Don't want that to happen. You don't want the camera on that side. I don't know what they were getting into. But anyway, welcome to the Panther-Lair Show, our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We get together for an hour or so and talk a little bit of Pitt sports talk. I feel like we just did this last night, although it was about 23 hours ago when we started, when we had the post-game show after the Pitt Clemson game. We were live for that. And we all kind of broke down that one, a little post-mortem on Pitt's loss at Clemson. We'll do that again tonight. We'll welcome Jim Hammett in a few minutes here, and Jim and I will talk about that game. We'll get your comments and questions as well. I think, just to throw it out for those of you who are already here, if you guys want to get the first comments in, I think we start off with a general question of, with where this season is headed, if Pitt's not going to make the NCAA tournament, is it still a successful season? Let's say they get to 21 wins. Let's say they get to 22 wins. Let's say they win out in the regular season to get to 21 and they win a game in the ACC tournament, probably as like the 5 or 6 seed. I would guess probably 6, I think. And they win a game there and they end up with 22 wins, but they miss the NCAA tournament. Is it a success? Is it a good season? You know what I mean? Do you rate it as a good season? I've got my thoughts. I shared some of them last night on the post-game show. We'll see what Jim has to say, and we'll talk about it. But you guys who are already here during the live stream can post your comments and questions. We'll read your comments. We'll read your questions. And, of course, if you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets answered, you can be a super chatter. But you know the things we always ask you to do. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's the most comprehensive. It's the video channel. I almost gave you the tagline for the website because sometimes I get mixed up in my head. But youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's where we put all of our Pitt video content. These weekly live streams that we do every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Our post-game shows after every road basketball game. The daily morning Pitt videos that we do here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's all, right here. Lots of video content. Spring football starts next week, so we'll have highlights from practice and, interviews and press conferences and all that stuff. There'll be a lot of video content for you to check out. You don't want to miss any of it, so subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and that way you can be tuned in for everything. And then the website, as I always say, it's Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. It's a place to get all of it and interact with other Pitt fans to have conversations on the message boards. I think it's the best online community of Pitt fans that you're going to find. And if you are a Pitt fan, you want to talk to other Pitt fans, that's the place to do it. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Go check out the website now if you're a Pitt fan. It's the best place to be. All right. As we do, we welcome in our good friend Jim Hammett every week. Jim's from Panther-Lair.com as well. Jim, there you are. Can you hear me and can I hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You sound great. Can you hear the dogs?
I can hear the dogs. You might hear some weather here. I have some crazy winds and storms going on. Yeah.
Okay. Did you get storms overnight? We had some big thunderstorms here overnight.
It's kind of been going on all day. Like there was hail for a few seconds. Oh. Yeah, it's okay. Like the end of the world.
It's getting really cold here, so I think our precipitation's about to turn to snow. It's like 30 degrees. It was 60 this morning, and it's in the 30s now and dropping fast. I think it's going to be under 30 probably by the time we're done here. So, yeah, we've all got a little bit of weather, but our weather has gotten quieter because it's not as windy, not as thunderstormy. But anyway, Jim, the Clemson game last night. What was your big takeaway from that one? How they lost, why they lost? I know we were in a group chat with Matt and Steve and Houston. So I think we have a lot of shared thoughts. But what did you think of that game last night? Why'd they lose that one?
One of my takeaways from the game was it just felt like a missed opportunity because, when you miss 10 layups and you miss 2 dunks in a game and you lose by 7, that's kind of what it comes down to. And your best player only scores 6 points and your second best player isn't on the floor for the last 5 minutes at a crucial point of the game. There's a lot to dissect there. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they lost, and but probably chief among them is Henson. You can't survive when he only has 6 points in a big game like that.
Yeah. And that's the real shame of it is like he had 6 points in that game, but like you mentioned, I mean, the layups, Hinson was 2 of 2 on layups. So he wasn't the problem when they were 5 of 15. Everybody else was 3 of 13 on layups. And it was like Jalen Lowe was 1 of 4, Ishmael Leggett missed 2. Bub Carrington missed the one he tried. Federico, easy looks. Guillermo had the dunk that he missed. Zach Austin was credited with a missed layup. Will Jeffress probably shouldn't have a field goal attempt in a game and ends up with a miss there. So it's really disappointing because it was a game where Hinson wasn't on and he wasn't scoring, but they still had that chance. I mean, you make some of those layups, particularly in the first half. You pointed it out. They were 2 of 7 on layups in the first half. You hit a few of those, and instead of only being up 10, you're up like 15 or 17, who knows? You've taken the crowd out of it. The crowd was out of it when it was a 10-point game. But you let Clemson come back into it. And I remember thinking early in the second half when it was like a 1-point game, I'm like, okay, it's just like being back to the start of the game. But it wasn't like being back to the start of the game because now Clemson had the momentum and their fans were in it because Pitt just wasted all of those opportunities. What do we think of the Lowe situation of Jalen Lowe coming out at the 4:30 mark, not coming back in until the final 21 seconds? It was a 2-point game when he went out and a 6-point game when he came back in. Some people on the message board mentioned that, he missed a backdoor cut and gave up an easy layup right before he went out. And maybe that was it. I like you transcribed the post game. Did Jeff Capel have anything to say about that?
No, because our good friend Noah Hiles was the only Pitt reporter down there, and he asked him, you got a thumbs up.
I didn't do it. I was scratching my arm. I didn't even touch anything. How did I get a thumbs up? Who did that?
I'm not sure. But yeah, Noah asked him, he said, was he healthy? And he said, yes. Did you just like the lineup on the floor? And he said, yes. And I found that curious because, I don't know, they were kind of starved for offense. And, he's someone that can probe and get into the teeth of the defense and make things happen. I thought Bob Carrington probably had one of his best games in a couple of weeks, and he was able to do that. But I don't know. I mean, if Hinson's off, I'd rather have both freshmen kind of, slicing and dicing the defense and trying to get through there. So it didn't make a lot of sense to me because Zach Austin doesn't really give you a ton of offense. I mean, it's not like Clemson was killing you. It was a low scoring game, all things considered. So you needed offense. And, looking back, I wrote earlier in this week, over the past 5 games heading into last night, Jalen Lowe has taken the second most shots on the team. It's Blake Hinson, it's Jalen Lowe. He's been the number 2 option. He's been, their second best player. He's been a really good player. And that was the first time since he's been a starter, he's played under 30 minutes, I believe. And, it was a weird thing to me.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense. And he was still getting his layups. I know he was missing. Like I said, he was 1 of 4 on layups officially. But I mean, he was still getting those opportunities. He was still taking advantage when Clemson switched on the screens. And he was beating guys. And sometimes I thought he was a little bit too cavalier in his drives, but he was getting to the shots that he wanted, getting there with his left hand, which Clemson knows he's going that way. I didn't get that. I didn't get that. I mean, if you want to stick with Federico at the end, all right, fine, I guess. But I think you're right. If it comes down to Lowe or Austin, I want Lowe on the court. And I don't really think that's I don't even think that's up for debate. Tommy Graham says Jalen Lowe couldn't watch that Hunter guy. What did Hunter finish with? Hunter had 15 points. But did he score kind of late there? I feel like
Hunter was 2 of 4 in the second half with 7 points.
Right. And I mean, I'm looking through the scoring there. I mean, he had a drive with 8.5 minutes. Maybe he scored while Lowe was out, but yeah, he hit a 3 while Lowe was out. So I don't know. I don't think that made a big difference. You know what I mean?
I think the value of having more offense kind of outweighs if he was struggling on defense.
Right. Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, coach's decision. Coaches have to go with what they go with. But like Jeff Capel's been pretty consistent in supporting the freshmen and riding with the freshmen and sticking with the freshmen. I mean, he sat Bub Carrington in the first half of the Virginia Tech game due to foul trouble, but went back to him and played him the whole second half. And I thought Bub was really good in the second half against Virginia Tech. And I think he was probably their best player last night, right? I mean, it's kind of, And there were a lot of guys who didn't play well, but I mean, if you had to pick a best player last night for Pitt, it was Bub Carrington, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he had 18 points, 7 rebounds, no turnovers, and played 32 minutes. I mean, he fought through some foul trouble, but I thought it was a good moment for him around the 10-minute mark of the second half. He hit those back-to-back threes, and kind of gave Pitt the lead, and they weren't really able to capitalize on it. But down the stretch, I think after that sequence, Pitt only made 2 or 3 shots, and I mean, he was able to get to the line at least. I mean, I thought he was doing good things there. So, I mean, I thought that's where Pitt's strength, in that game could have been. I mean, is driving to the lane. And I thought Jalen Lowe could be an X factor because looking back to that first meeting, Jalen Lowe wasn't Jalen Lowe on December 3rd when they played Clemson. I think he only played 9 minutes. He didn't score. So I figured, okay, they have this really good point guard that can drive and beat anyone off the bounce. That's probably a good thing. So I don't know. It was strange to me, but I mean, that's just part of it. There were so many different, elements. And I mean, the one play that it really came back to was when they finally got it down to 1 point with like a minute 40 left. They had that little cross up, and I think Federico tripped and
he fell down. Yeah,
he fell down, and I mean, PJ Hall had the ball by himself, and PJ Hall was so surprised too. Like was, oh my god, and it was just so strange, and like everyone had to fall back. But I mean, I don't know how that possession would have played out, but you didn't even give yourself a chance by having that kind of mix up right there.
Right, and then I'm trying to see. So Hall hit the free throws in that situation. And then Carrington missed a 3 after that. And then at the other end, Hunter hit a 3. And that was kind of that was kind of it. But so I mean, Bub Carrington hits the back-to-back threes, like you said. And that was huge. That gave Pitt a 4-point lead with 8:44 to go. He attempted one shot over the next more than 5 minutes. Like he had those 2 threes. His second one was at 8:44. He had a jumper about a minute later and didn't shoot the ball again until the 3-minute mark. Like, I don't really get that. I didn't understand it. Like, he was the hot hand at that point. He was the only guy who was playing well offensively and giving you anything, and he doesn't shoot. It's the same thing. Like, Blake Hinson doesn't even attempt a field goal in the final 13 minutes. Like, can you explain this to me, Jim? Like, he attempted a free throw in there, but it was a 1-and-1. It was a foul on the floor. It wasn't even a shooting foul in the final 13 minutes, and that was it. How do you, like, when has Blake Hinson ever been reluctant to shoot the ball? How do you go 13 minutes in the final 13 minutes of a crucial game on the road and Blake Hinson doesn't even attempt a shot? I understand if he's cold, but he doesn't even attempt a shot? Like, you can't convince me, and maybe you can, Jim, maybe you can try. You can't convince me that Clemson figured out some secret in the final 13 minutes and denied Blake Hinson the ball. How does he go 13 minutes without attempting a shot?
No, I mean, I thought Clemson did a really good job defensively in general, and you can chase a good 3-point shooter off the line. But I mean, in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I think Blake's been really good, doing some post ups and kind of, I think he gets away with some travels when he's in there sometimes, but he's able to get shots there. So, I mean, why not post him? That's kind of the other thing that kind of confused me. I mean, I know Clemson has a really tough team, and, Shefflin and Hall, that's a very tough duo inside, but there seemed to be opportunities to get him shots, even if they weren't coming from 3. So he's your best player. You have to find a way to get him a shot, and he was on the floor. It's not like he was sitting. I mean, he was out there. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's Hinson and Lowe have been really good lately, and they just were nowhere to be found down the stretch.
It doesn't make sense to me. He was 2 of 5 inside the arc, but only attempted 2 layups. He had 3 jump shots, mid-range jumpers that he missed. Converted his 2 layups, and they were the only 2 baskets he attempted. I don't think there should ever be a game where Blake Hinson only attempts 4 3-pointers. And like, you can't convince, I mean, like, he's not a shy shooter, right? I mean, we know this about Blake Hinson. I made the joke, our good friend George Michalowski, and I put this on Twitter later, but we were talking during the Virginia Tech game where I think it was Hunter Couture fouled out, right? Oakland Zoo's going on and left, right. They do when a guy fouls out. It's great. And a savvy vet like Couture times up his sitting down during the foul shot, right? So that all the fans yell, "Sit down," while the home team is trying to shoot the ball, right? Savvy moves. I've seen guys do it before. It's great. Blake Hinson was like not shooting free throws well in that game. He drains it during the sit down. And it occurs to me that Blake Hinson plays better in chaos. Blake Hinson plays better on contested shots and with hands in his face and with noise. I think that might be why he doesn't shoot free throws well. It's too calm. It's too quiet. There's no like adversity or static. So no matter what Clemson was doing, if the ball ends up in Blake Hinson's hands outside the arc, he needs to be shooting. Like 4 attempts, even if he's cold in a night, 4 attempts is not enough because he's a good enough shooter, like Jeff Capel has said a lot of times, that you take those bad shots, you accept those bad shots because he can make those bad shots. And once he starts making them, it'll get him going. It'll get the team going. I don't care if they were running him off the free throw line. I saw Joe Girard get run off the free throw line and still drain him with no problem. Like Blake Hinson should have no hesitation about shooting. Certainly not 28 games into this season on top of, how many is it now? 64 games he's played at Pitt or 63 games or whatever. When did he cross 1,000 points? That was his 61st game. Which one was that?
Against Louisville.
Was that the Louisville game? So that was 3. So this is like 63, 64 games now. Like why all of a sudden now he's reluctant? Now all of a sudden somebody's figured out how to get him to stop shooting. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, but those two situations, Blake not shooting at all in the final 13 minutes and Jalen Lowe coming out, I don't get it.
I don't really either. And, we're talking about 4 3-point attempts. I think one of them was like he got the ball with 1 second left on the shot clock and had to fling one up. So he really only had like 3 true 3-point attempts. So I don't know. It was a weird thing. And I mean, yeah, I do give Clemson credit. They are a good defensive team. They do kind of mess with Pitt. That's 12 in a row. Pitt has lost to Clemson. So I don't know. And that's the one thing I can't figure out about that whole thing is like Clemson's made the tournament twice over these past 10 years. It's like they're not losing to Duke like this. They are losing to Clemson. An average middle of the pack ACC team just has a complete control over Pitt.
Yeah. And I mean, NC State had it too, right?
Oh yeah.
NC State had
they kind of got over that. Like I think they've won 2 or 3 in a row against them. Right.
So now they just have to find a way to crack the code against Clemson. I don't know. Disappointing game because it feels like it's not just that they lost. I mean, you could say every loss is disappointing. There's no question about it, but like disappointing that this game was there to be won. Disappointing that they could have built a bigger lead in the first half and held on. And I think for me, when we look back and we say, how did this team miss the NCAA tournament? If that's where their fate ends up, like this is one of the games I'm going to circle because it was there to be won. It was an opportunity. I think this game, I think the game at Syracuse, and I think the Missouri game. I think those 3 games are all very much winnable games that they should have won, where they shot themselves in the foot. You lose games. It happens. But the way they lost this game, missing 10 layups, the way they lost the Syracuse game, missing 13 free throws, and the way they lost, I mean, Missouri just stinks. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like going back, I mean, that's a bad loss at home. Those are 3 games they should have won. And if they win those games, they're 21-7 right now. And I don't think we're even talking about the bubble, right? I mean, they're not even like in last 4 in territory. They're solidly in, aren't they?
Yeah, with those 3 wins, probably. And like probably at some point they might have even been ranked over these past couple of weeks. I mean, like they would have been like a top 3 or 4 ACC team, just right on the heels of Duke and Carolina. So I mean, it just feels like missed opportunity. That's the only way to put it. And I look at the metrics and what they dropped 2 spots in the net, so they didn't get killed for this loss. The problem is they didn't do anything for themselves. They need to jump forward. They don't need to keep treading water. And I think that's kind of where it is right now.
What do you think's hurting them the most? Metrics? Is it the non-conference strength of schedule? I'm trying to figure out the thing that the metrics or the bracketologists hate about Pitt. What do you think it is?
I guess that's part of it. I mean, like their best win before Duke was what, West Virginia on the road. I mean, like that's kind of what kills them. It's like they never had a quality win. Maybe if they got that Florida game, like if they had that in their back pocket, that might have saved them. Even with a Missouri loss, if they had that extra quality win, I don't know. But yeah, I guess strength of schedule, lack of big wins, lack of big non-conference wins. And I mean, and just the conference they're in. I mean, it's not just Pitt, it's the entire league. I mean, the ACC is down perception-wise, and We saw Brad Burnell kind of have his comments the other day about how, this league just needs to figure out how to game the system the way the other leagues are doing it. I mean, I don't think the top, 8 teams in the Big 12 are all better than every team in the ACC, but for whatever reason, the computers like them. And that seems to be decided in December, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of basketball after December.
Yeah, Brownell had those comments about, the Big 12 gaming the system. And but I look at what he was talking. He was talking about that they just don't play anybody. They play bad teams and beat up on them really bad. But I mean, that's what Pitt did. I was looking through their 7 mid and low major games. They averaged almost 28.7 points per game, margin of victory. They won a game by 51. They won a game by 48. They won a game by 36 and a game by 29. They beat a Pac-12 team by 25 and they beat a Big 12 team by 17 on the road.
Yeah.
So I thought Brownell was suggesting that, the ACC needs to schedule more cupcakes, but Pitt scheduled cupcakes. Pitt didn't schedule hard. They had the backyard brawl, and then the ACC SEC challenge, and the Legends Classic, right? And everybody wants to play in one of those tournaments, and everybody's going to get in one of those made-for-TV things. So all they really did, I mean, do you swap out West Virginia for Duquesne? I mean, West Virginia, you won a game on the road against a Power 5 team. So I don't know. And I'm not really making a case for Pitt. I mean, it's fine. You should have beat Missouri. You should have won Syracuse. You should have won this game last night. But I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, schedule more. It seems like, so Brownell is saying, the Big 12 figured out how to game it by scheduling a bunch of patsies and just beating them up, beating up tomato cans. He had some quote about before they played TCU. Look who they played. They haven't played anybody. Well, who did Pitt play before the Florida game?
Yeah.
They didn't play anybody. So they're doing sort of the same thing. I guess I just don't get, I don't know what the solution is, because it seems like the bad non-conference schedule is being held against Pitt. They're not getting, you had a loss here or there. Well, you also had a crappy non-conference schedule. It's like if you're going to lose a game, you need a balance of they played a tough non-conference. Is that it?
I mean, it's kind of hard to I would almost need to look at everyone's schedule in the ACC and see what it is, and see if that's what's bringing the whole league down, and Pitt's just part of it. But yeah, I mean, Pitt didn't play a tough schedule this year. They normally really don't. I mean, they're not in those marquee Kansas Kentucky games. They get maybe 1 or 2 of those type of games a year and 9 cupcakes. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't really cracked the code of the net, but it seems like some people have, and some people are angry with it, and it extends beyond Pittsburgh. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of people kind of frustrated with the current state of affairs.
Yeah, and I don't even know what matters most, because we're told that we all pay so much attention to the net rankings, and then they get to the committee and they say the net rankings don't matter at all. So it's well, why did we pay attention to that? Or are we supposed to pay attention to Ken Pomeroy? Or are we supposed to pay? I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to watch. And so we're just stuck with, Joe Lunardi and these bracketologists who, I don't know, just doesn't make much sense. I guess it comes down to they've only got 2 signature wins, right? I mean, is that it? They have 3 quad 1 wins. Did I see that?
Yeah, because Wake Forest is top 30 in the net. So
Wake Forest. That's right.
That home win counts as one.
Right.
I mean, they've been toying with getting a 4th, because I think NC State is perpetually 76th in the net rankings.
Yeah, they're right there. Well, and that's the thing too about that Syracuse game. It absolutely would be a quad 2 win, because Syracuse, I think the last time I looked, last night or this morning, they were 82 or something in the net, and then they're playing well. If they were to keep winning, they could sneak into the top 75. You could end up with 5 quad 1 wins, 6 if you include the Clemson game. I don't know. But then again, we're told net doesn't matter. So who even knows? I don't get it. Let's see. William Richter says, last night when they came out for the second half, I felt like something was off. They shot themselves out of it. Hinson was non-existent and Lowe was out. It's a recipe for Clemson to take advantage of that to seal the deal. Yeah, 0 of 7. I think they missed their first 7 shots in the second half and went 3 of 15 from the floor to start the second half. They missed 12 out of their first 15 shots and their first 7 3-point attempts. For as good as they were in the first 10 minutes of the first half from 3, it was the exact opposite. They couldn't hit anything at all. But let me bring up the box score here. In the second half, the start of the second half, Blake Hinson shot 2 3-pointers in the first 10 minutes of the second half. So maybe part of the reason that you're not making any 3-pointers is because your best 3-point shooter isn't shooting them. And again, I just can't buy the defense angle. I can't, because there's been film out on Blake Hinson since midway through last year. He's not a surprise. He's not some mystery. And nobody else has been able to stop him from making threes. You can't convince me that just one team cracked the code. It just doesn't. And what did he do against Clemson last time? Didn't he have a decent game?
He had like 27 points, 6 threes.
Right. So
almost shot him back into it.
Clemson couldn't figure it out last time, but somehow this time they've got the recipe. And if they figured out that recipe, I assume Boston College can copy it. I mean, that just kills me. Like, you can't go down without your best players at least taking a chance. Maybe they're not going to always save you. Maybe he's not going to always make those threes. Maybe Jalen Lowe is not going to always make all those shots and get all the assists, but at least have a chance. Did I say this already? I thought Bub Carrington was really good last night. Did I already mention that? I wanted to switch over to something positive. I feel like, I mean, you go back to the Wake Forest game last week. He was 3 of 13 in that game. But I thought he was really efficient and smart and played well in the second half of the Virginia Tech game. And I thought he was pretty good last night too. I know I said some part of that before, but I did want to pick that up because it's interesting to see him continue to sort of grow and develop. And I think he's been up and down, but I feel like he's kind of up right now. And when he's going and Lowe is going and Legg is going and Hinson is going, they're really, really good. You know what I mean? They really are dangerous. They just, I don't know. You need at least like 3 of the 4, right? I mean, you can't have 1 of the 4 like they had last night going. What's the minimum? You need at least 2 of the 4 if one of them is Hinson?
Yeah, as long as one's Hinson. If it's not Hinson, then it's probably the other 3 need to be on. And, they just didn't get that last night. I mean, I think they've been getting some good stuff from Zach Austin lately. Like, he's kind of settled into that role. He's, hitting some corner threes. He had a nice dunk last night. And I don't know. I think he's giving them good energy. And I think that's kind of the role they always had envisioned for him is, just kind of be this guy, hunt, block shots and rebounds and, be available in the corner if, someone kicks it out to you. So, I mean, I think that's been a good positive development. And it's hard to really say anything about the centers because some games are good, some games are bad. And I mean, that's a tough matchup for him. I mean, just PJ Hall's one of the best big men in the country, and he's going to school, Federico and Guillermo 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. I was just, as you were talking, I was remembering Blake Hinson when he tried to throw it off the backboard to himself.
Yeah.
Remember that last night? He got called for like basket interference or something. You should be allowed to interfere with the basket if it's your own shot. You know what I mean? Like,
there was a couple like almost really cool plays. Like Guillermo almost had that awesome dunk.
Oh.
Like Blake's play right there. And like, you remember Jalen Lowe's like awesome, like behind the back.
Yeah, when he lost the ball.
Yeah.
He lost the ball and had the presence of mind not just to collect the ball, but also know almost intuitively, I don't even think you could call it peripheral vision, that Guillermo's right there with the no look. That was ridiculous because it was a turnover. It should have been a turnover.
Mm-hmm.
That was like Jordan Addison pulling the interception away from the Virginia defender. I mean, like, he lost the ball, but somehow collected it and made the pass. Guillermo missing that dunk. I mean, like, Guillermo, you are not going to get a better opportunity to drive and dunk ever. Like, the lane was wide open. It was not contested. You faced no adversity whatsoever. You can't brick that dunk. I mean, you lose by 7, so you can't say a dunk is what it comes down to, but it really summed it up, right? I mean, because it's not going to get any easier than that. And his 3-pointers also, he didn't force any of his 3-pointers. I thought, how many did he attempt last night? 2 or 3, I think. But I feel like every single one was a great look. Like, I felt like he was wide open for every one of his threes, and he just missed them. It was that kind of night where it didn't go in, but I like Guillermo taking threes in the flow of the offense. When he gets an open look, like, yeah, he should have no hesitation. Step up and pull the trigger, which he did last night. Like, I thought he took good shots. He just didn't get lucky. But I'm on board with him shooting whenever. You're good with that, right?
No, I mean, he's 39% on the year. I mean, outside of Blake, I mean, percentage-wise, I think he's second on the team. So, I mean, when he's open, that's a good shot for this offense, and that's kind of one you're looking for out of him. I mean, because you're not going to get post points out of him. You're going to get hustle points and threes. I mean, that's Guillermo right now, and I mean that's kind of the situation. But yeah, he's liable to knock down a couple each game, and you're right. I mean, they were all within the context of the offense. It's not like he forced them. They weren't like bad fadeaways. It's like they're the ones he normally makes.
I mean, they have 6 guys right now, 7 on the roster, but 6 guys right now that if you're open from 3, take it. Right? Like, is there anybody you would say doesn't have the green light to shoot an open 3 out of Lowe, Carrington, Hinson, Leggett, Austin, and Guillermo?
No, I mean, I think I posted or tweeted a stat last week. This is the first Pitt team with 6 guys with 20 or more made threes ever. So
wow.
they they've had some other ones with 5, and I think last year they had like 4 guys with over 50, something like that. But like just the balance to have that many guys to be able to shoot a 3, I think is unique about this team, and that's kind of that's how they play. But yeah, I mean, I think those are all, if they're open, they're all good shots.
And now I need to look because I feel like my prediction preseason was something about the Twins.
It was like they would make 53s combined or something.
Combined?
Yeah, I don't think Jorge's helping you out too much.
No, he's not at all. Where are they at here? How many is Guillermo's got? He's only got 24. Crap.
Oh, I have our season picks bookmarked. I'll tell you what your pick was here.
What the prediction was?
Your bold prediction.
Yeah.
The Diaz-Grahams will combine to make 45 3-pointers.
45?
Yeah.
Jorge only made 1. Crap.
Really? I thought he didn't have a good year whenever he was healthy or when he was playing, but I figured he.
Wait, hold on. That's conference games. Hold on. I was looking at the wrong stats. He had 9.
I was gonna say I feel like he made a couple.
So okay, so he had 9. Guillermo has made 24, so that's 33. Can Guillermo make 12 threes in the next?
I'll tell you what.
Let's call it 5 games, right? They have 3 regular season games. I think if they end up as like the 6th seed in the ACC tournament, pretty good chance of winning a game. If it ended right now, they would play the winner of, I want to say like Virginia Tech, Louisville. So if that, I think they could win that game, which means that they would have at least 5 more games. Can Guillermo make 12 threes in the next 5 games? Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He certainly can.
Maybe an NIT game too. You never know.
Yeah, right. I mean, the more games you add, the more opportunity there is for him. He has, in the last 5 games, he's only made 6 threes. So I think he would have to get hot. He would need a game or 2 where he makes like 3 or 4 threes. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, he could still get there. And I mean, look, I think I get an asterisk or a mulligan since Jorge got hurt, because he'd be good for at least another 10 or so. And so my prediction will be like pretty much right on. What I say they're at right now, they're at 33. If Jorge had another 10, I'd be in great shape for my prediction. That's pretty smart. What was your prediction? Are you close?
Well, it was kind of before Bub Mania, but I said Bub Carrington is a one and done player. So like it looked really good. It looked really good in December. It's kind of tapered off. Let's see. Houston said Pitt will make the tournament. Matt said Pitt would finish in the top 5 of the ACC. And I mean, I'll tell you what, Steven probably had the worst one.
Uh-oh.
Federico will win ACC Defensive Player of the Year. That just isn't happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because Jeff Capel kept talking about how he's the best defender in the ACC. It's like, that hasn't exactly panned out. I mean, you said Matt predicted that they would finish 5th in the ACC?
In the top 5. So, I mean, I guess
top 5? That's
still
very realistic. Yeah.
That's the most realistic one.
Because all the teams like directly ahead of them, right? I think it's like Clemson, NC State, and Wake, or, they all like play each other. All the teams that are like directly ahead of Pitt. So there's a chance that they could climb 2 spots and end up in the top 5. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I guess. So who's got the best shot out of all this? Me?
What
of getting the prediction right? Matt, probably.
I'd say Matt
in the top 5.
I mean, I there is a world where Bub is declares for the draft after this season.
That's
It
true.
would be ill-advised, but he could.
Yeah. I no, would that count if he transfers? Is that, or do you mean one and done, just NBA?
Like it was an NBA.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, it wouldn't be the worst decision we've ever seen. You know what I mean? We've seen guys far less ready to go pro decide to do so. William Richter says, overall, this season's been a huge success from the Pitt to where they are now. I'm okay where they are, and we should be too. Is there a win total, just sort of a tangible win total that would render the season a success even if they miss the NCAA tournament?
I mean, if they miss the tournament and get to 22 wins, which would mean winning the last 3 and 1 in DC, if they got to 22 wins and they miss it, I'm good with it. Like that's about what this team should be able to do, is about 20 to 22 wins. And if they get to 22 and don't make the tournament, like I would say that's a success. I mean, I think that's kind of the ceiling for this team. That's kind of who they are. And in different circumstances, in different years, different leagues, like 22 wins is normally good enough to make the tournament.
Yeah, because they'd be what, 22-11 at that point. I mean, that's a good reason. That's a good record. That's a good season. That's a good college basketball season to go 22-11. And so
that's what they did last year. They were 22 before the tournament.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they won. They finished with 24 last year. They won 2 tournament games. So
right.
Yeah, 22 was good enough last year.
That's a good point. But not this year. Or I mean, maybe. Like I don't know. What's your if that scenario comes to pass? They win 3 and they beat, let's say, Virginia Tech in the ACC tournament, and then they lose to whoever it would end up being, Carolina or somebody like that. Likelihood they make the tournament. Understanding that none of us are, neither of us is a bracketologist. Do you think they make the tournament?
I don't know. I mean, I don't, because I look at all the bracketologies and some guys like Pitt more than others, and I don't know who's right. I really don't, and I don't know what the net rankings mean right now. So I don't think they're like completely down and out like some think they are. I mean, like they obviously the path going forward would have looked a lot better with a Clemson win, but I don't know if they win 3, they win 1 in DC. I mean, if they go 4-1 over the next 5, I mean that's the best you can ask out of this team right now, and I don't know. I think they would at least gather together at the Pete to watch Selection Sunday if they get 22 wins.
Just not with the media present.
Well, they didn't have us in last year.
Oh, that's right.
They were in a separate room, and they had us in the media room, and they gave us a few boxes of pizza and just said, "Hey, sit here. We'll bring them out if they make the tournament."
If they make, yeah. The good old days when we would just sit in the same room as, but it was far more known and understood at that point. Like it was like, yeah, they're definitely. It's not. It was more like, oh, what will be their disappointment if they're a 3 seed instead of a 2 seed? Not will they make it or not. It was different times. Let's see. Peninsula P says, I think Pitt gets into the NCAA tournament if they end up 23-11. So 23-11 would mean they win 2 games in the ACC tournament, right? And they make the.
I would think that would get them in too.
Would that put them? That wouldn't put the. If they win 2, does that put them in the championship game? No. Puts them in the semifinals.
If they have 1 bye, they're like technically in the quarterfinals of the tournament. So they would, or no, if they win 2, they would be in the championship.
But their first game will be on Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it would get them to the semis.
It would get them to Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they would lose. So, but I mean, so if you were to win, bring up the ACC bracket here, just to see where they would. So, I mean, they're currently 7, right? Which would put them, as it stands here on Wednesday night, the 7 seed plays the winner of 10 and 15, which I think would be Virginia Tech and Louisville. If they win that game, they would take on the 2 seed. Who's number 2 right now? Duke? Yeah, Duke. So if they win that game, they would take on Duke. If they beat Duke, they would win. They would face either the 3 or the 6, which means they would end up facing like Virginia, if it all ended right now. So if they get to Friday, they lose, but they beat Virginia Tech and Duke on the way there. I can't see how they would be left out. And I know there's some feeling that maybe the conference tournaments don't really rate all that high for the selection committees. They look at the body work of the season, but I would have to think a win over Duke would be strong enough to get them in. It would also be really impressive if they pulled. I know they won at Duke already, but I don't know if I necessarily want to test that theory and find out by having them play Duke again. It'd probably be nice if the 2 seed ends up being like just weird things happen and it ends up being Virginia or even Carolina. I mean, I would probably take a rematch with Carolina over a rematch with Duke, just because I feel like Duke would be angry.
I think
probably make
they're
it
probably
bad.
they would try to make that personal with the whole Blake Hinson thing.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see them make it to the championship because my hotel reservations end on Friday, so I just want to see how I would survive on Saturday and where I would end up. But I don't know. So that's we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
So you check out on Friday. That's
Yes.
you don't
Yeah,
have
or I'm homeless on Friday if they keep going. So
just Friday night. You just got to find a way to make it through the night. So I mean, it's always like an airport or something like that.
I'll figure it out.
You can find somewhere to go, spend the night, find a casino, and just pull an all nighter. And sleep in your car. And I mean, come on, Jim. There's solutions here. Yeah. So to Peninsula Peace Point, if they go 23-11, even if that ends up being that second win is a win against Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Clemson, any of those teams, yeah, I think they would get in. I agree. Tommy Graham says, big dance or not, this season was a success. Like William said, take everything into context. I agree. And I think we fall into a trap sometimes of if they don't make the NCAA tournament, it's not a good season. They've got to make the tournament and yes, that could guarantee a good season, but it's not. I think you can have a disappointing season that is also a good season, right? I mean, I think we can play it both ways. I don't think we have to belabor that, right?
No, I mean, I agree, and it's just the way it was trending. I mean, I remember kind of writing about when they were started 1-5 in the ACC. I was like, is Jeff Capel really going to survive this? This would be 5 out of 6, below 500 seasons. So for them to stop on a dime and turn it around and win, whatever it was, 8 of 9 and 6 in a row, over the past couple of weeks. I mean, that was impressive. You have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, I did not see this trending in this direction, and to even be talking about maybe making the tournament on February 28th.
Yeah, if you look month to month as well, I posted this earlier. They were 4-4 in January. They were 5-2 in February, and February used to be the bad month. Remember, February is when they were really bad. And this year, 5-2 in January. I thought I had written down. I guess so. They went 9-6 in January, February this year. 11-4 in January, February last year. It's become something. They've gotten better as the time goes on. As the season goes on. Last year and this year, I think they've improved, which was not the case in the first 4 seasons. And I think I think people have to recognize that. They're like, well, that actually is a good thing that a team gets better over the course of a season, that they finish playing strong. And it's hard to see that when you're fresh off a loss last night and then the loss last week, a 30-point loss, but they have gotten better as the season has progressed. And I think that's a good thing as well. Mark asks, you mentioned the good old days when it was, will he be a 3 seed or a 4 seed? From a historical perspective, can you elaborate on why Jamie Dixon was pushed out? The man can coach and had quite a run at Pitt. Yeah, Jamie was great. I mean, Jamie did a great job here. People got ridiculous about, he always gets bounced in the Sweet 16. But the reality is he did a great job at Pitt. He had a lot of success. He won a lot. I think by the time he left, he was ready to check out here. And I think people at the top of the athletic department were ready to move on and try something different. I think Scott Barnes led that charge. I think for all the hatred levied at him, some of it is merited in terms of, his efforts in getting Jamie Dixon out. Obviously, he did a really poor job at replacing him, but he was all too willing to let Jamie Dixon walk, and Dixon was all too willing to go. At the time, it felt like it was probably time. I mean, what was the final game? That game against Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament, the final score was 42-30 or something. It was just a miserable, boring game. It was bad, and it just sort of felt like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, okay. But he was really, really good. And what would he have turned it around? I don't know. You know what I mean? Could he have adapted to the ACC? I don't know. He seems to be doing just fine in the Big 12. But it's bad. It's disappointing because he had a great run here.
Yeah, I don't really like. It's not like he locked himself in the office and they made him leave. I mean, it was kind of like a mutual decision. I mean, I think that last team was put together with a lot of. It was like kind of before the transfer portal. You remember they had like Rafael Maya, Alonzo Nelson, Adota. Who was the other? Who's the shooter from Coppin State? But like, yeah, like I mean, but like that's like who he was able to get towards the end, and like even he landed like Ryan Luther and Cameron Johnson. Like they weren't big time recruits. Like he wasn't kind of getting the same guy. Like obviously Cameron Johnson turned out to be a great player, but like he wasn't getting the same guys, and like they were starting to rely on the transfers, and they were kind of hovering around the, what Pitt is right now, the 20-11, and he was used to being 27-4 and top 10. I think it was time on both ends, and pushing Jamie Dixon out or not renewing his contract or whatever it was. I don't know if that was a mistake. It was what happened after was the mistake.
Yeah, that was a big problem. Were you thinking of Sterling Smith?
Yes.
Brock came through with it. Shout out to Brock. Brock, though, says, I deem this basketball season a failure if they don't reach the tournament. It also stings that we won't get to see Blake Hinson in the tournament one last time in his final season, let down of a season. Yeah, I mean, like, I think everybody came into this year expecting or hoping for a return to the NCAA tournament, but they had a couple of games get away, and for whatever reason, a lot of the metrics don't like them. I don't think all hope is lost yet, but it certainly got a lot more difficult after this loss, just like after a number of other losses they had. All right, I did want to talk, Jim, because we got less than 15 minutes here. I did want to talk about spring football since that starts next week. I have a few thoughts of what I'm sort of focused on. What are some of the biggest things that stand out to you as we look ahead to spring camp here?
So, like, one of the big things for me is, like, I'm kind of sick of talking about the coaching staff. Like, that's the only thing we've talked about for 2 months. And I kind of want to start talking about football again. Like, I want to talk about the guys on the team, not the guys coaching them. And I'm kind of interested to see how they blend into this, this new offense. And I mean, there's a lot of big roles and big shoes to fill. I mean, I want to see what happens at quarterback. I want to see how the defensive line looks without Charlie Partridge. And I wanted to see how the defensive line looked with Charlie Partridge. I mean, I think there was a lot to have there. And there's some promising young players. I want to see how they make their second year. I want to see Jordan Bass. I want to see Kenny Johnson. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of storylines. And, obviously, let's see what Eli Holstein's all about too, of course. But, I mean, I'm ready to kind of, stop talking like, oh my God, this coach is from the FCS. We're going to lose every game. I just want to, start talking about football and the guys on the field. And I'm kind of interested to see how they perform.
And we can come back to the coaches when they start losing every game.
Exactly.
So you mentioned Holstein. I mean, where do you think he's going to, I have my thoughts on what I think the depth chart's going to look like, but I'm curious when they walk out on the first day of practice, where is, they line up to take 11 on 11 drills or whatever it is. Where does he line up? What order is he in there?
I would guess third. I would think it'll be Yarnell, Veyer, then him. I mean, I don't know if that's indicative of how it's going to be in August. I mean, I think you just have a starting point, like March 4th. Like this is what it is on March 4th, and I think that's kind of what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's the same class as Ty Diefenbach, right? I mean, he's got the same amount of experience as Diefenbach. He's only got one more year than Julian Duggar, but not a year that was spent in this offense or even on this campus. So I don't know if there's a clear, obvious option. I think it's clearly Nate Yarnell and then Christian Veyer, like you said, but I feel like they'll probably rotate through those three guys and sort of see who rises to the top. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to expect there because they're all new and everybody's new to this offense, but like Diefenbach didn't play last year. Holstein didn't play last year. Duggar was at Penn Hills last year. I don't know what to sort of expect out of that. And I still don't know. I mean, do any of those guys jump out at you as being the best option for this offense? And I know, Cade Bell said, if I had Lamar Jackson, we'd run the offense with him. And if I had Tom Brady, we'd run the offense with him. But we've seen the kind of guys that they're offering. I mean, they are offering a lot of guys who can break down and run. either on design runs or when the play breaks down. So, I mean, who does that give the edge to? Like, Duggar's probably the best runner out of this group, right? I mean, he's long strides. Um, he can get out and go, but I mean, we've seen Yarnell run a little bit. Diefenbach, I think, is a pretty athletic guy. He was a baseball player. They're not as much. Holstein, we're told, can run pretty well, but we haven't really seen any of it. Do you feel like there's any one of those five guys that is like clearly the best option for this style of offense?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of go back to Nate Yarnell and where he was in high school. I mean, you look at Texas high school football. There's a lot of spread concepts, and he comes from Lake Travis High School, who puts out a Division I quarterback every single year. So, I mean, I guess like the whole because when he came to Pitt, like I think they said he had to learn how to like go under center. Like
Yeah.
he never went under center in high school. So I don't know. I mean, I wonder if he can kind of just connect some dots from what he did in high school and kind of look at this spread offense and look at this, no huddle and just some of those concepts. I wonder if there's anything relatable, but I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to see how the offense looks, and I kind of want to I need to see how some of these quarterbacks looks. I mean, we only saw Nate Yarnell, but he's 3 starts in 3 years. I mean, it's not like we have a ton to work on. I mean, I thought he was solid down the stretch. He was okay in that Western Michigan game 2 years ago, but again, small sample size. So I don't know the correct answer on who is going to look the best in this offense.
Some of it might just come down to who can run it the best, which might come back to your point about Yarnell and sort of his history of what he's run. But if they're going to go at this tempo, you need a quarterback who can get the play in, can get the play called, can get guys set up and sort of have the presence of mind to move at that speed. There might be a mental aspect more than the physical aspect to maybe not more than, but there might be a mental aspect that has to be seriously considered because you're going to have to be on top of it to get everybody lined up and get moving and get going. I think the D line, you brought up the defensive line, and I think that's a spot that I just have no idea what the rotation is going to look like there. You know what I mean? I think in previous years we would have said, well, this guy and that guy. I think Deion Hayes will be a starter. Beyond that, like out of any of the 4 spots on the D line, who else? Who are you next? Who's like the next highest level of confidence in being a starter at any of the spots, D end or D tackle?
Maybe Matlack. I don't know. I mean, defensive tackle is going to be very interesting. I mean, because for 5 years it was Devin Danielson, David Green, and Tyler Bentley. Like, obviously they had good players surrounding them, but like that was like your backbone. Like, we know we can at least have these guys on the field and they can play. What do they call it? Winning football, or whenever they grade out after practice. I mean, they can at least be on the field and do good things. I don't know. Like, they don't have a defensive tackle coming back that I know could do that. I mean, I think Shot Fitzsimmons can be good, but he's kind of small. I mean, I think he needs to probably bulk up a little bit. And so, I mean, we've never really seen Elliot Donald do much of anything. I'm very intrigued by the whole Nakai Johnson moving inside thing. I actually think that could work if some things kind of fall in his direction. But he has the great quickness, and he was never really built like normal Pitt defensive end. Like Charlie Partridge defensive ends are usually Rashad Weaver 6'5" type guys, and Nakai's not that. So I mean, I think his quickness can translate inside. So I'm intrigued by that, but I don't know. I mean, maybe Nick James. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really because then like I look at end and I'm like, is Nate Temple just going to sort of by default be a starter? Like at least in spring camp, Nate Matlack I think is like you mentioned will probably be in the mix there. Or Bam Brema maybe. I mean, David Ojebwe is coming in, but he's pretty young and pretty inexperienced. Don't really know what to make there. And the tackles, I mean, you're right. It's just completely up in the air. I mean, Fitzsimmons seems like the guy I sort of lean to as well, but just because he's older. Like Nakai has no experience. I mean, I can't even close the door on a guy like Isaiah Neal. I mean, why not? Because who else is going to do it? That's such a big question mark. They needed another tackle. I'm kind of surprised this is all like they're going into spring camp with just the guys only bringing in one transfer D tackle. I'm still sort of I feel like they're pretty thin there.
I do too, and I mean, I don't know how the rotation's going to be, but under Charlie Partridge, like he plays 5 or 6 guys, and the way it was looking, at least most of this offseason, I think one of the true freshmen is probably going to play. I don't know if it'll be Whittington or Brew or whoever, maybe Sincere Edwards. I mean, like one of them's going to have to play inside. I mean, they're not going to be able to survive just with the guys they have, and So that'll be interesting too. And I think, Brew's on campus. We're going to get a glimpse of him. There's a bunch of freshmen. There's a bunch of transfers. So there's just so many new faces. It's going to have a different feel.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. So, I mean, they have Sean Fitzsimmons. He's what, like probably a redshirt sophomore now? I should have the thing in front of me. Elliot Donald's a redshirt junior, I think. Isaiah Neal's a redshirt freshman. Nick James is what, a redshirt sophomore, I think he is.
Yeah.
And then how many guys did I just name? 4. And then Nikai Johnson is a redshirt junior. So that's 5 guys right there.
Plus the freshman.
Yeah, I mean, just to go 3 deep, you're going to need one of those freshmen to play, unless you're moving Dorian Ford back or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that seems pretty unsettled. I can make a guess, like an educated guess, at the rotation at linebacker, corner, safety, just about everywhere. But I can't make a guess on the defensive line. I just can't. I don't know what that's going to look like. I really, and I think it's still kind of a concern, right? Because the D-line wasn't great last year, didn't really produce all that much, and I'm not sure that they really got better this offseason. You feel like they did?
I don't know if they got better. I mean, they gave themselves a chance to be better in a couple of years, but I don't know if it was like they have a ton of like, okay, like this is going to fix the problem right now. I mean, like Ojebwe is like a good long-term project. Same with Nick James. Like, I don't know if that's like going to instantly translate like, okay, this redshirt freshman from Clemson is going to get 10 sacks. I'm not betting on that. I mean, maybe it happens, but if he gets 10 sacks in 2 seasons, I could probably buy that. I mean, he's a talented guy, but I don't know if there's that instant fix. I mean, I think they rebuilt the position, but I don't know if they made it better, one season to the next.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you look at last year to this year, they lost Sam Okunlola and added Nate Matlack. Like, I don't know if that's I don't know what Matlack's going to do, but I don't know if that's a great trade-off. I'm not really sure. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And I mean, it's debatable about what we'll actually learn during spring camp. So, because we won't really see very much of it. We'll just watch some warm-ups and things like that. And then I guess we'll see guys in the spring game. But it's a big spring. I mean, it's a big spring for settling some of these position battles, the quarterback situation, the D-line rotation. They've got 21 new players between high school freshmen and transfers. Only 7 super seniors. I mean, not counting Key Thompson. That number keeps dwindling. I think we've talked about this before, that those numbers of the super seniors would keep going down year after year. And this year it's Daniel Carter, Jason Collier, Ryan Jacoby, Bam Brema, Deion Hayes, Nate Temple, and Brandon George. So pretty much pared the list down. There's not, right? Am I missing somebody?
No, I'm just thinking I'm just saying, like, is it going to be phased out after this year? Because it's guys that would have started their career in 2021.
Yeah.
Like Nakai and Elliott.
Yeah, you're right. So this is the last group. This will be the last group of guys, because Deion was the class of 2020. So I guess Deion was the class of 2020, but he redshirt, or he didn't redshirt. So if there's any guys from the 2020 class who did redshirt, so
like
Branson
they might have
Taylor,
a couple.
I think Branson Taylor was in the 2020 class.
He was.
So that he would have the option to come back in 25 as a super senior. So anybody who redshirted in 2020 would have the option to come back. But then that's it. Then they're done, and you can have a little bit more roster management there. But with all those guys, with the 21 newcomers and the super seniors and all that, I've got them at 81 scholarship players for the spring. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty full in there, and like because of the weather, like they're inside a lot, and like there's nowhere to go, and whenever there's a full team on the indoor facility. I mean, we were talking about the small Pittsburgh Steelers facility today on Twitter, weren't we? So I mean, we know how it is down there. There's just no room to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when Pitt is in normal spring ball and they only have like 55 or 60 guys, and then they can find out what it's like for the Steelers, who have half the team, and yet they're complaining about they don't have enough space over there, even though it's half as many guys.
Have you ever been on their side?
Not for like over to the cafeteria, maybe the media room once or twice, but not into their locker room or weight room or anything like that. I mean, like, look, you're landlocked in that building between a railroad and a river. You can't expand out. I've been told that sort of geologically, you can't add another floor on top, like weight-wise. It's just not, the ground is not stable enough to support it. So you have the footprint you have. You can't change that. But what you can do is make it nicer inside, which Pitt has done. Our good friend Will Graves from the AP pointed out that every time you go into the Pitt side of the building, it feels like there's something new. They've updated something. They've upgraded something. You can do things. You just have to be willing to spend the money. And I don't think the Steelers are willing to spend the money. But that being said, who cares about this poll? Colleges have to make things nice so they can recruit.
Yeah.
The NFL doesn't have to recruit. They just say, we will give you $10 million a year. Come and play for this money or don't. And I have to think guys make most of their decisions based on the money more than whether the lockers have been updated in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It doesn't matter, but there's less pressure on the Steelers to do so. Although, they might feel bad about getting unfavorable reviews in anonymous player surveys or whatever that thing was. But anyway, all right, we've got Pitt at Boston College on Saturday, and then the start of spring camp next Monday. So a lot going on. Then Pitt, Florida State game is really late. It's another one of these 9:00 games on Tuesday night, I think. You see that? And then they close the regular season against NC State at home on Saturday. So lots to do, lots coming up here in the next 2 weeks heading into the ACC tournament. We'll have plenty to talk about right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, our weekly live shows we do every Wednesday night like this. We'll be live after the Boston College game for a post-game show. And, of course, the morning Pitt video every day of the week, Monday through Friday, talking about everything going on in Pitt sports. A lot of spring football talk tomorrow on the morning Pitt, so make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you don't miss any of the Pitt video content. Other than that, like this video and then check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. Jim, thanks as always for hanging out. We appreciate you. You guys have a good Wednesday night. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning for the morning Pitt, and then we'll be live after the game on Saturday right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.